What if I told you that the woman who survived arenas packed with screaming fans, a worldwide stalking scandal, and one of the most chaotic celebrity pregnancies in history is now too afraid to step out of her own car? What if I told you that A$AP Rocky just broke a silence he swore he'd never break? And what slipped out of his mouth inside that podcast booth is something his team allegedly begged him not to reveal. 20 bullets, one nanny, 2 babies, a chef, and a mother-in-law who, according to whispers circulating in Beverly Hills security circles, dropped to the floor before the second shot even rang out. This isn't the story you saw in the news. This is the version they attempted to bury. The version Rocky finally cracked open on a microphone he wasn't meant to be honest on. And by the time we're finished here, you're going to understand exactly why Rihanna hasn't stepped foot inside that mansion since, why she froze in the middle of an Italian street like she'd just seen a ghost, and why insiders are now saying the couple may never return to Los Angeles again. Stay locked in, because what you're about to hear is not gossip. It's the part of the story nobody wanted you to know about. Let's rewind, because to understand the weight of what Rocky just admitted, you need to understand exactly what happened that Sunday afternoon. And trust me, the official version barely scratches the surface of it. March 8th, 2026, a quiet Sunday in Beverly Hills. The kind of afternoon where the only sound you expect to hear is a sprinkler hissing on someone's manicured lawn or a Tesla humming down the street. It's 1:20 in the afternoon. The sun hangs high. The neighborhood feels calm. Rihanna is not even home. She's away. But her babies are there, her mother is there, her chef is there, her nanny is there, and parked right outside the property, an Airstream trailer. The kind of luxury accessory most people don't think twice about until it becomes part of a crime scene. And then, without warning, silence shatters. 20 rounds. Not warning shots, not random gunfire echoing from somewhere down the block. 20 rounds fired with terrifying precision at one of the most famous addresses in Beverly Hills. 5 bullets slammed into the neighbor's home on the right. 5 more tore into the neighbor on the left, and 10 ripped directly into Rihanna's property. The Airstream trailer was riddled. The exterior walls were pockmarked. And 1 bullet, the one that haunts everyone close to this story, punched through the wall and entered the home's interior. The exact area where her children, her mother, the nanny, and the chef were located. Let that sit with you for a second. A bullet inside the house while the babies were inside. If that bullet had traveled 3 feet differently, we'd be having a very different conversation today. And that's the part Rocky can't stop replaying in his head. That's the part that wakes him up at night. That's the part nobody, not even the most aggressive paparazzi, has had the nerve to ask him about until now. Now, here's where the story takes a turn that most outlets glossed over, because the suspect isn't some shadowy figure from the underworld. She isn't a rival. She isn't connected to anyone in Rihanna's circle, at least on paper. She isn't a rival, not connected to Rihanna's circle on paper, named Aaliyah Chanel Ortiz here. And on the day of the shooting, she was taken into custody in Sherman Oaks. Police didn't just locate her. They recovered the weapon too, an AR-15 style rifle, with shell casings still rattling inside her vehicle. The kind of detail that leaves almost no space for confusion or denial. She was booked on suspicion of attempted murder, and bail was set at a staggering figure north of $10 million. $10 million. But here's where things take a turn. Here's where this case quietly slipped out of the loud headlines and into the colder, more complicated corners of the legal system. In May 2026, a judge ordered a full psychiatric evaluation. The case wasn't dismissed, it wasn't closed, it was transferred into mental health court. Because, according to the court's assessment, Aaliyah Chanel Ortiz was not considered mentally stable under legal standards. And insiders close to the investigation have suggested that what she allegedly told authorities in those early hours after her arrest was so fragmented, so detached from reality, that prosecutors had no choice but to rethink how the entire case would proceed. Her next hearing was set for June 2nd, just days ago. But since then, the courtroom has gone quiet. No public update, no press briefing, no televised proceedings. Just silence. And in cases like this, silence is never simple. It can mean negotiations behind closed doors. It can mean psychiatric placement instead of prison. It can mean the entire direction of the case is being reshaped away from public view. And for Rihanna's circle, that uncertainty is almost as unsettling as the event itself, because when the system goes quiet, nobody really knows what direction things are moving in. Meanwhile, Rocky and Rihanna are still trying to function inside that aftermath, still trying to be parents, still trying to maintain some sense of normal life for two young children who have no understanding of how close everything came to falling apart. For months after, Rocky said nothing publicly. No posts, no interviews, no carefully worded statements slipped through media channels. Nothing. And in Hollywood, that kind of silence from someone so visible usually says more than any official statement ever could. But then came the podcast. The room was quiet, the lighting subdued, the microphone already live. The host leaned in and asked the question everyone else had been avoiding out loud. After what happened at the house, especially with the children involved, what was that moment like right after? And for a split second, Rocky hesitated. You could almost feel the calculation happening. The choice between the safe, polished answer and something unfiltered. And what came out wasn't polished at all. It was direct, heavy, uncomfortable. He called it messed up. He called it painful. He called it frightening. He said someone had attempted something against him and his family. And then he said the words that instantly took over the conversation online. It was unprovoked. It came out of nowhere. Unprovoked. Out of nowhere. And that's the part that unsettles everything. Because in celebrity narratives, there is almost always a backstory people can point to, a feud, a pattern, a warning sign. But here, according to Rocky, there wasn't anything visible. No build-up. No public tension. No obvious threat trail. Just a quiet Sunday and then 20 bullets. And that absence of explanation is exactly what makes the experience harder to process. Because when there is no identifiable reason, there is no clear boundary that makes you feel safe again. It turns into a lingering uncertainty, one that doesn't fade just because time moves on. And if anyone needed proof that the impact is still there, they didn't have to look far. Not long ago, Rihanna was in Italy, walking through cobblestone streets under soft daylight, the kind of setting that usually signals peace, reset, distance from chaos. She stepped out of her vehicle. Cameras flashed. Paparazzi called out her name. And then it happened. Just a voice, slightly too loud, cutting through the air. Rihanna, who has stood in stadiums full of noise without flinching, froze. She turned, hesitated, then stepped back into the car. Door shut. Moment contained. But not without consequence. That wasn't a reaction of a celebrity tired of attention. That was a nervous system reacting to a sound that once meant danger. A conditioned response. A memory the body still carries even when the mind is trying to move forward. And anyone watching closely could see it, that this version of Rihanna isn't performing through chaos the same way anymore. She's adapting to it, carefully, cautiously, one moment at a time. And that's where the story deepens again. Because while the world has been locked in on what Rocky said, people close to the couple have been quietly telling a very different version of what's been unfolding behind the scenes, and it paints a far more complete picture of their reality right now. Insiders claim the couple hasn't stepped back inside that Beverly Hills mansion since the day everything happened. Not once for a quick visit, not to collect personal items, not even to check on repairs or changes. It's as if the property has been completely erased from their routine. Instead, they've reportedly been moving between New York and Italy, staying in private, heavily secured residences far away from the Hollywood spotlight that once defined their daily lives. And according to whispers circulating among people familiar with their circle, not confirmed, but widely repeated, they've also been consulting with high-level private security experts about something much more long-term, a full relocation strategy. New perimeters, new systems, new locations that would never be publicly connected to their names. The kind of restructuring that only becomes necessary when normal safety stops feeling normal. And it doesn't stop there. Sources close to the family suggest their children's lives have been placed under an extremely controlled routine since the incident. No public appearances, no casual outings, no unvetted social environments. Every movement, every interaction reportedly filtered through layers of security clearance. The goal, according to those same whispers, is simple but heavy: to make sure the kids never inherit the fear their parents are still trying to process. Then there's the legal situation surrounding Aaliyah Chanel Ortiz. As the case continues moving through mental health court, there's growing uncertainty about what an actual resolution will even look like. It may not end in a traditional prison sentence. It may instead shift toward long-term institutional placement, depending on psychiatric evaluations and court decisions. And for Rocky and Rihanna, that ambiguity is its own kind of tension, because closure feels impossible when even the justice system can't clearly define the outcome yet. And this is where the conversation shifts into something deeper than headlines. Because what people often forget in stories like this is what it actually does to a person when money, fame, and access can fix almost everything, except the moment it already happened. Rocky and Rihanna have every resource imaginable: private jets, private security, global mobility, entire teams built around protection and comfort. But none of that rewinds the moment a bullet entered a space where their children were sleeping. None of it erases that split second where everything changed. That's the part of trauma that doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about status or success, or how carefully a life is built afterward. It simply stays where it lands. Even Rocky's own words on that podcast reflected that reality. When he called it scary, hurtful, and unprovoked, it wasn't just commentary. It was the sound of someone. That's the part of this story that lingers. Not just what happened, but how it continues to echo in everyday moments. And here's where things get even more uncertain. Because despite all the focus on Rocky's comments, one major question still hangs over everything, growing louder the longer it goes unanswered. How did this situation even become possible in the first place? Beverly Hills isn't just another neighborhood. It's one of the most heavily monitored, heavily patrolled, heavily secured places in the world, where surveillance is constant, private security is common, and celebrity homes are treated like high-risk zones by default, where every other house has cameras pointed in every imaginable direction. And somehow, someone, allegedly a woman acting alone, was still able to pull up to one of the most recognizable properties in the entire neighborhood and unload 20 rounds in broad daylight before being taken into custody elsewhere. And that alone doesn't just raise questions about Rihanna's personal security setup. It raises bigger questions about Beverly Hills itself. It raises questions about how exposed even protected spaces really are when routines become predictable. It raises questions about whether the entire fortress-like image of A-list celebrity living is more illusion than reality. And then it pushes the conversation into something far more uncomfortable: the idea that no matter how much money you have, no matter how advanced your surveillance is, no matter how high your gates stand, you can't fully eliminate the possibility of someone determined enough to do the unthinkable. That's the part Rocky didn't need to spell out, because it's already visible in everything around him. It's in the way he speaks. It's in Rihanna's guarded body language. It's in the simple fact that they haven't returned to that mansion and, for all anyone knows, may never step back inside it again. Because in their eyes, that place isn't just a property anymore. It's not a home that can be restored with renovations or redesigned with new finishes. It's a fixed memory, a frozen moment, a crime scene that no amount of repainting, rebuilding, or reimagining can ever fully erase. So, where does that actually leave them? Right now, Rocky and Rihanna are reportedly splitting their time between New York and Italy, two places that offer something Los Angeles no longer can: distance.